In regards to the Israeli acted and the United States funded genocide that is being committed against Palestine and the Palestinian people, I much prefer the infographic because I feel like so much is happening all of the time and we're getting so much new information that everything I put here speaking in person feels very outdated. However, I wanted to maybe help clear something up, especially I'm filming this over Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. And during this past weekend, it was supposed to be a 4-day ceasefire, humanitarian pause, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It was all bullshit because we all knew Israel was not going to actually ceasefire or pause or anything like that. We all know that wasn't going to happen. But especially during that weekend, I hope that there was some boycotting, lots of boycotting, actually, not just some. I loved seeing people disrupt the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Thank fuck, that was beautiful. But also with this past weekend, and then all of this time leading up to Christmas, whatever other holidays you celebrate, whatever gift-giving events are happening for you and yours during November and December, there is a lot of brands and everything that like give money to Israel and support the Israeli apartheid. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But the BDS movement, I specifically wrote down, they have like this infographic. Please take a look at this, and I will put a link in the description to like, if you want more information on it, the link is going to be in the description. But I just wrote down on my little note sheet, because I can't look it up on my phone because I'm filming on my phone, the main ones. Like, if you're boycotting Starbucks and McDonald's right now, that's fucking fantastic. Keep doing that because they're shitty companies anyway. Like, if you want to just forget all of this other stuff going on, they're shitty companies anyway. Starbucks is union busting, so like fuck those guys. But these are like the main companies that the BDS movement and like Palestinians are like, hey, they actively contribute, like fully support it, actively contribute, actively send money as corporations to the Israeli government and support the Israeli apartheid. So the consumer boycott targets, and they are, again, like the infographic you saw in it, and like I said, it'll be in the description, but this might be a little more like helpful. Consumer boycott targets, this is like, these are ones that customers stop buying a product or brand to express strong disapproval, which obviously that we're doing. And as you saw in the infographic, but I'm going to say again, Puma, Carrefour, SodaStream, HP, Remax, Ahava, Simons, and AXA were the main ones on that infographic. So those are ones that you are going to actively boycott. I'm not telling you not to boycott Starbucks and McDonald's. You should be boycotting Starbucks and McDonald's. Every time I see a line of people at a Starbucks, it makes me want to fucking vomit. And unfortunately, there's a Starbucks like right near the store that I work at, so I have to see it constantly, and it makes me want to vomit. So keep boycotting those, not telling you not to, but those shops specifically, especially Puma, because Puma, I've been seeing a lot of like ad campaigning for Puma for like the holiday season. Fuck them. Boycott that shit. Hello Friendsies, welcome back to my channel. I thought this would be a cute little idea. I want to share with you some not so berry secrets. I was going to hold off on this and wait to do it maybe like after Plum Gen was done, but I have my little notebook here. I literally have a mint, like, small notebook that I should have wrote this down in, but I have my notebook here. This is the notebook that sits at my desk. So any, like, ideas for things, they all go in here. I have a list of not-so-berry secrets from Mint Gen to Gray Gen. And the thing with my secrets is there were so many for Mint and Rose Gen, because I've said this in videos, like, actively, that I have had so many plans for like storytelling and gameplay that I really wanted to kind of like weave into Not So Berry. In my game and my Sims said, actually, fuck you, we make the decisions, not you. So that's super fun. But the thing with Mint and Rose Gen is because I was trying so hard to like make certain things happen, I have a lot more things that didn't happen. So they are like, the secrets are more. I keep looking down at it. Yellow Gen literally has 1, and Gray Gen only has 3, as compared to the others 4 and 5. Because I kind of learned while making Not So Berry, while filming Not So Berry to post it, that sometimes you have to let the game just do what it wants. And this is very, the Not So Berry secrets are very heavily inspired by, like, when Claire Siobhan did her secrets videos way back in the day. Originally, I think she started them because of when she did, like, her miniseries with Kenai and Coda, Kai, Charlie Rose, and oh my god, what was the other girl's name? There was one more cousin. And then she went back and did like the secrets of all of her, like her older series where it was like Dream House, Broken Dream House, all that stuff. So this was heavily inspired by that. And I think it's going to actually be super fun if you really enjoy Not So Berry, which I enjoy my own Not So Berry. Maybe that's a little conceited, but I love my Not So Berry challenge and I do go back and watch it because I have so much fun. And I like to see like where I started and where I am now and just kind of like how I've grown and how I've learned how to like film comfortably and edit comfortably. Does that make sense? Anyway, I have Not So Berry secrets for you. And I really want to know if you guys kind of saw some of this stuff coming or if you didn't see it coming. I think the episode you're going to see on Saturday, not a spoiler, but the episode you're going to see this coming Saturday is the last episode of Grey Gen. And then we're going to start on our purple demons. So I thought it would be a good time to do it. Like I said, I wanted to wait until the end of Purple Gen, but I also was like, you know what? This is kind of a sweet spot. Let's just have fun with it. So let's start with Mint Gen, which is the sim version of me. That's literally why I like wore mint and everything today. It was the sim version of me. It was meant to be me. Very much alternate universe, Sims universe version of Heather. I say that because of how embarrassed I get for doing what I did in Mint Gen, but also like, again, Dollhouse Simulator. We all know it's not real. Anyway, so Mint Gen, I have a note here that says Palace Reborn / Past Mints. If anybody here saw the 2 episodes of Not So Berry I did in 2021, maybe 2022. I think it was 2022. If anybody saw the 2 episodes of Not So Berry that I did in either 2021 or 2022, like way back, there was a sim named Palace, and it was I think it was Palace Berry. That sounds right. I think her name was just Palace Berry. And she was my Mint Gen sim, and she was a sim that I made one time, just playing around. You know, we do that. We play around, we make sims. She was a sim that I made just playing around, and there's a specific hairstyle from, I don't even remember what creator it is. It might be Leah Lilith. The CC creator Leah Lilith, that when I was playing The Sims 3 and I made my like Lepan Supernatural Legacy, I'll put the card up somewhere for that, like me talking about that. It was the haircut I gave my mom. So it was kind of me trying to like make a sim that looked like my mom. And then I realized it really didn't look anything like her, especially in the face. So I was like, you know what? I really want to try Not So Berry. And I have a Not So Berry save file on, like, in my Sims game where Palace is the Mint Gen heir. And if you guys want to know about, I made a video about my orange sim from that specific playthrough. Rogue Berry will always have my heart. But, every time I kind of, like, either got bored of, like, the current Not So Berry I was playing or, like, kind of wanted to restart, I saved that Not So Berry save file, and I have the Not So Berry save file that you guys are watching me play. But every time I wanted to like restart or anything, I always did Palace. So Palace was actually going to be, instead of just Palace Berry, she was going to be Palace Mulberry. And not the Palace Mulberry that you know now. She, instead of, Yellow Gen Palace Mulberry, it was going to be Mint Palace Mulberry. And I really loved her. She's still saved on my gallery and everything like that. I don't know if I can, like, share her because of her CC list and everything. I don't know how to, like, do that appropriately. You know what I mean? Like, let you guys know all the CCs. If anybody has any idea and wants to see her, let me know. But she was going to be the original Mint Gen sim. She was going to be the sim again. She was just always, she just is my Mint sim. Does that make sense? So she was going to be my Mint sim. And then there was a time where I made my sim self, and I made, for Not So Berry, I'm sure you've seen if you've watched the Mint Gen episodes, it's my sim self, but like mintified, so like mint hair, and outfits that I probably would wear in real life, but it's very specifically minty when in reality they'd probably be like pastels of like pink, purple, and blue. There was a sim, I named her Mika, I think, where I made my sim self mintified her, but then kind of made her her own character. So the like face and sim physical appearance template was the same, but I changed a lot of just like aspects of her personality. She obviously had the same traits, but her name was Mika, but she looked just like my sim. So it's kind of funny. I wrote Palace Reborn / Past Mints because I kind of wanted to talk about that. I feel like I fucked around a lot with like different mint sims beginning and trying to like experiment with them. I have Goth Thruple. You're gonna have to watch the video of the Lapan like Supernatural Legacy. Like I said, I'll put the card up here. In that video, I explained that in my Sims 3 like playthrough, when I had the Sims 3 before it freaked out and I had to delete it off my thing to like make it work again, and then I got sad, so I just didn't play anymore. I married Bella Bachelor. I married Bella Bachelor. My sim self married Bella Bachelor, and I was originally planning to have Mortimer Goth be like part of that marriage, and then he like did, I don't know, I couldn't figure out how to do it in The Sims 3. I never learned how to use that NROS woohooer thing. Never could figure it out officially. I feel like all I have to do is sit down and read. I didn't want to do that. So the original plan in The Sims 3 was for me to be in a throuple with Bella Bachelor and Mortimer Goth, because Bella Goth is fucking iconic, and I also, like, I get it. EA base game Mortimer Goth is fucking rough. He looks rough. But between, like, the makeovers he has had from EA and also, like, skin details that I've put on him, and the Fortune and Romance story that I used to read on LiveJournal, it just hasn't been updated in so long. I really like Mortimer Goth. I actually really like him as a character. So that was the plan for this Not So Berry. I was going to put in my like made over version of Mortimer and Bella, and I was gonna like not have Cassandra and Alexander, or have them later, you know, if I had a kid and then Bella had kids, and maybe Mortimer would have a child as well, you know, all three of us birth a child. Cassandra and Alexander were going to be like later on, but then, you know, I would have been involved as well. That was the original plan, and I really wanted to do it, but what happened is I made like a new game, and I started kind of like playing with it and trying to set things up before I started recording, and I found one specific house on the gallery that was like the perfect like Sims 3 style goth mansion, but then decorated with like the things you can get in the Sims 4. And I don't know what happened. I think there was like something wrong with that save file, so I tried to like fix it. And when I got frustrated, I just deleted it, and I was like, whatever, I'll just do it again and see if I can see if it'll work better this time. And then I couldn't find that house, and I got really sad, because the plan would have been Mint Jen would have moved into that house, and then we would have had like that whole storyline of like being part goth. Does that make sense? So that was the like original spouse goal, was to be in a throuple with Bella and Mortimer. Next on my list, I have just the tab Alien Genetics. In the Not So Berry save file that I play in my personal time, and I've been playing, had Palace as, you know, the Mint Gen heir, and is the save file from me talking about my Orange Gen sim that I absolutely adore. Palace is married, Mint Gen Palace was married to an alien that I got off the gallery called Giancarlo, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and he is the only sim I have ever had in all of my years of playing The Sims 4 that ever won the fucking lottery. I'm so mad. I wish we still had that fucking lottery money. But that was the idea of the Alien Genetics, is I knew I had in the past an alien spouse, and I really wanted to do it again for Mint Gen, because I feel like from a storytelling perspective, if you really want to lean into like the idea of Yellow Gen traveling to 6am and everything, a lot of like creators on Instagram who do their Not So Berries on Instagram really lean into like that Yellow Gen aspect of it, of like traveling to 6am and having that be like a big part of their personality. And that's what I was trying to do with my Yellow Gen Palace and Almathea, and I hope I got it across the way I wanted it to. But originally what was going to happen is Heather was going to have some kind of involvement with aliens, whether it was an alien spouse or like alien genetics were involved in some way. That was going to be the original plan, because I like the idea of like the Yellow Gen coming back to like the aliens and space exploration and science, being heavily influenced by, you know, DNA. Like, Grandpa was like kind of a weird and kooky person that glowed. Holy shit, wait, they're an alien. I want to know more about my heritage. It was that kind of situation. And it just didn't end up panning out. Because of the next bullet point I have, which is alt bias. So it was going to be the goth thruple. It was going to be an alien spouse, or just like an alien baby, like influenced by the aliens in 6am, very like Sims 2 abduction storyline. And then the not so very mint gen spouse was almost Han from Stray Kids instead of Bang Chan. I started my Not So Berry challenge in January of this year, January 2023. Holy fuck, it's almost been a year. And at the time, I had just gotten into Stray Kids. I made a whole video about this last week. You should go check that out as well. But I was like still very new to Stray Kids. I was only like 2 months in January. And I was being very aggressively bias wrecked by Han. So that was almost... Our mint gen spouse was almost Han. And then my last bullet point is one that you probably figured out in mint gen. I feel like a lot of the things I say when I'm filming, I know that I'm lying. So I'm trying to convince you guys that I'm not lying. And I feel like in the way I'm trying to convince you, you guys are like, okay, yeah, no, we know what's going to happen. So I have, I just have the tab Overlord Knowledge, and then in parentheses, knowing and choosing that I was going to have twins. Because, like I said, all the planning I was doing in my head, I knew I wanted twins for Mint Gen. I never expected to have Josephine, and I didn't expect to have Josephine with the infant update, like, actively happening. That was fucking wild and confusing. Shout out to Josephine, she deserved better. I knew I wanted twins for Rose Gen, because I had a really good idea for both of them, whether it was a female heir or male heir, because in The Sims and with the idea of the Rose Gen, that does have very different implications. That's the word I want. Very different implications with a female heir and a male heir when you need to do a gen where it's the serial romantic, because it has, you know, the idea of a lot of other like Sims players have done this, obviously, but it's the idea with Rose Gen with having like being a single parent until you maybe not necessarily single parent, but having to leave somebody at the altar and not getting married until you're an elder, and having one child in a time frame where they can, you know their grandparents fairly well. The idea that like a lot of women just do that already. A lot of people in society already do that. And it's kind of like looked down upon, especially like maybe from like traditional backgrounds and in people like involved in politics, to like not be married. You know what I mean? So that very different implications. So Giselle's storyline probably would have been something like that, like being like trying to go up in her government career and being very heavily shamed for, you know, being a single mother. And then when she gets to the altar, just not being able to handle it. That was kind of the idea if Giselle ended up being heir. And Caspian being heir, you kind of saw how that went. Like, it's a little easier for him to be a single parent and just do whatever he wanted if he ended up being a single parent, which he obviously wasn't. But it was that kind of idea. Because for men, everything men do is seen as like, that's pretty fucking baller. And then if women do it, we're like, oh, what a fucking bitch. So that was I knew I wanted twins, and I made sure I went in MC Command Center and gave us twins, because she was going to have a boy. Heather was just going to have a boy, but I went in there and I click-clacked in. All right, let's get into Rose Gen, and I feel like Rose Gen is where it gets messy, just like any Not So Very playthrough is. Rose Gen is where things get messy. So we already know about Caspian. If you've watched Rose Gen, which I think you should, I thought it was a really good time. We already know Caspian. We already know the things he got up to. But let me tell you some sneaky secrets about Rose Gen. So the first two like little tabs that I have relate to each other. You remember how we left Angel's silver sweater at the altar? It was supposed to be Deborah's shadow. The second little tab I have is Palace's genetic makeup from Risky Woohooing. Those two specifically go together. Deborah's shadow was who we were going to leave at the altar. You know, childhood sweethearts. They knew each other when they were kids. They grew up. They were high school sweethearts, all of that stuff. But I love high school sweethearts and I love like young love and I love that kind of storyline. But it's not for everybody, whether in something you like to consume in media or something you like to particularly live. It was the idea sort of a lot of, you know, people from my mother's generation. My mother got married young. My mother got married when she was, I believe, 20, 21. And it didn't end up working out well. And to be like, granted, the person she got married to was a huge piece of shit. And Caspian made very bad choices. I don't think genuinely deep down Caspian was a bad person because it was never anything done maliciously. It was all things done ignorantly, but that doesn't make it okay. Does that make sense? So it was going to be the idea of kind of like a young marriage and feeling very like, I want to be with this person. We've been together for so long. But with Caspian being the way he was, where he is polyamorous, like that is the way his brain processes affection and everything. It was going to be like, I can't do this. Like, I really love Deborah. I want to be with her, but I can't do this. And he was going to leave her at the altar. That was the original plan. And then what was going to happen? Does anybody remember Elijah? Does anybody remember Elijah? I'm going to say this. I love Reed and Archer. There's a reason why we ended up with Reed and Archer. Elijah was probably my favorite of all of Caspian's lovers. I should have saved Elijah to the gallery. I never ended up doing it. I should have saved him to the gallery and given them like a different save file where the two of them were together, because genuinely, Elijah's probably my favorite of everybody that Caspian was involved with. And the story idea was that Caspian was going to leave Deborah at the altar, you know, maybe have like a little like freak out, like, oh my God, I can't do this. Leave Deborah at the altar, go to Elijah, you know, maybe get a little tipsy, maybe make some bad decisions. And they were going to woohoo. And then Elijah was going to be Palace's other father. Then what was going to happen is, because Elijah was an elder when they fucking met, let alone, you know, through all that, what was going to happen is Elijah was going to pass. I was going to let it happen naturally. And then when Caspian was alone with like a baby, he was going to go to Reed and Archer. Reed and Archer were always endgame, but they were never meant to be part of Palace's genetic makeup. And I also never necessarily planned for them to have an additional child. Like, Bowman was very much like a kind of like a spur of the moment, like, I love this, because I really loved seeing Caspian with a baby, so I had to give him a second baby. But Reed and Archer were never going to be genetically involved with Palace. Palace was going to be Caspian and Elijah's baby. I think that's kind of spicy, personally. That was always the plan. But what happened is, I think I may have downloaded my, like, a mod or like an update incorrectly, because I was like aggressively having Caspian and Elijah woohoo like in between recordings, and nothing was happening. I went into Cass and did like the base game, like updated, switching around where Caspian could get pregnant. I went and fucked around in MC Command Center and had to like write down everything I was changing so I could change it back. I like downloaded, like, I think it was an update of a mod, and I don't know if I like did something, but I almost corrupted my game trying to figure out why they couldn't have a baby. And I don't know if it was just like the game fucking around with me and being like, he's an elder, he's infertile, but I couldn't get them to have a baby. So then I kind of just kept Elijah around because I really couldn't help myself, but I stopped like inviting him over as much because I was getting really frustrated. So that is why we ended up with Angel Silver Sweater that we left at the altar. That's why we ended up with Reed and Archer when we did. And that is why we ended up with Reed as Palace's other parent. That's that. That's how that happened. And I also have on the list, Angel Silver Sweater was a spellcaster, not an alien, because I can't tell you how many fucking clips there are of me going, is she an alien? Look at her eyes. Is she an alien? That's an alien. She was a spellcaster. I literally she lived like somewhere in San Myshuno. And it was weird because it was like a family that wasn't on her family tree whatsoever, but she was like actively taking care of their toddler. So I don't know if it was like a nanny situation or what, but Angel Silver Sweater was in fact a spellcaster. I thought she was like a second or third gen in, so maybe she had alien genetics involved. Nope, full spellcaster. And I also have full caps. Archer fucking died at one point. We saw Reed die on camera. We watched Reed die. It was horrible. I also feel really bad that I can't remember right now off the top of my head how Reed died. Oh, from being hysterical. Reed died from being hysterical. Archer was fucking struck by lightning. In a behind the scenes like situation, I was actively trying to get Reed and Archer together, like playing around and like having Archer be invited over because they knew each other through Caspian, like they were friends. I imagine that they all kind of like either went to high school together or like lived in the same town. Actually, they did. I think literally all of them lived in Oasis Springs in different neighborhoods. But I was actively trying to get them together, and I was like playing and trying to like keep like because Reed lived with their brother and sister, their older brother and sister. And I was like, you two are annoying, just like go over there. And it was fucking a thunderstorm, and Archer came over and got struck by lightning as a teen. Or maybe like the first day of being a young adult. So Archer also fucking died. So when I moved them to San Myshuno to set up the whole like, oh yeah, they've been together for years and this and that, and they kind of just like assumed that they were still dating Caspian even though they hadn't heard from him for a bit, but they were like, whatever, he's probably busy with like family shit. Archer had been dead. So I had to go in and I had to cheat all of their relationships back to where they were. It was such a mess. Now, again, I would like to point out that I only have one bullet point for Yellow Gen, because after everything that happened in Rose Gen, I was like, maybe I'll just let my game fucking like decide for itself sometimes. I'll loosen the leash a little bit because I desperately want to tell these stories, but also my Sims are going to do whatever they want. So the single Yellow Gen bullet point is Bowman's divorce. It's not even about Palace. Do we remember when Bowman and Kieran got engaged? Do we remember that moment? I remember that moment. They had 2 kids. They had Alexis and Nathaniel, who are still around and lighting my fucking grill on fire. I remembered one day, I was like, oh shit, I still haven't gotten them married. Let me just do that off screen, because if I don't do it now, I'm going to forget forever and they're never going to get married. So I don't know if Kieran was like annoyed about the long engagement. I don't know what happened. I went to Mount Komorebi where I moved Bowman to get them married, just to like do like a quick like elope immediately situation, and Kieran was gone. And he took the fucking kids. He moved to like Henford on Bagley or some shit and married like an elder with the fucking bun hairstyle in my game that Evander finds very attractive apparently. He had just left. He took the kids and he left. And Bowman was all by himself. And like Kieran remarried and Bowman was just alone in the house in Mount Komorebi. And that was part of the reason why when everything happened in Grey Gen, I moved Bowman in with Xavier, because Bowman obviously knew Xavier and like was part of his growing up and everything. So I was like, I don't want Bowman to just be alone in that fucking house. He's been alone for so long without his fucking kids. And that's mostly because of, I don't know if it was part of like the storytelling update that they put in, because I find that not a lot of stuff that feel like it has impact happens in my game because of that new thing. New, I say, it's been around for a while at this point. Like there's a lot of like adopting happening in my game, but there's not a lot of like, I feel like impactful things happening. Bowman was just alone. And I was gonna say too, but I think most of it has to do with MC Command Center and the fuckery that happens with MC Command Center. And as much as I love it, sometimes I fucking hate it, because I think it broke up Bowman and Kieran. All right, so now Grey Gen, which we are going to be finishing on Saturday. The video that comes out on Saturday will be the end of Grey Gen. So let's get into the Grey Gen secrets that I have. And there's only 3, because once again, the story kind of got away from me. I couldn't hold on to the reins as much as I wanted to, and it just went off on its own. So the first note I have is air since birth. And this is one of the times that I feel like I knew I was lying to you, by saying, I don't know who the heir is going to be. I really want to give everybody a fighting chance because I really don't know. It would be cool if we did it this way or this way. I knew from the second that Evander was born, I knew. I didn't know while Almathea was pregnant. I think I knew that she was having a boy. I'm pretty sure I looked in MC Command Center and knew she was having a boy. But I genuinely didn't know beforehand like how many children I wanted them to have and like what the storyline was going to be. I was like, ooh, I really don't know how we're going to plan an heir out for the way I was setting up the story of Pallas constantly wanting to run off to 6 a.m. and Almathea being very scared for her, especially because Pallas kept getting fucking abducted. I really didn't know where I was going with that in the second generation, and I knew like the kids were going to influence decisions that were made. But literally, Evander was born, and I have those pictures of like Almathea like holding him and like putting him in the bassinet. And I was like, yeah, I really don't know how many children I want them to have. Evander came out, I named him, and I said, actually, I want them to have 3, and I know exactly what I want to happen. So that idea of Evander being the eldest brother taking care of sisters, something about an older brother taking care of sisters, maybe because I have 2 older brothers that took care of me a lot when I was little, that I knew immediately that was who was going to be my heir. So no offense to Winnie and Mona. Love them so much. I hope they're having the best time in Sulani being a conservationist and an actress. They never had a fighting chance at all. So I don't know if me saying that constantly in the Grey Gen episodes, if you had like an idea, if you were like, this sounds like a crock of shit, it's definitely going to be Evander. I knew from the second he was born that he was going to be heir. I had every fucking intention of him being heir. So if anybody was genuinely hoping for Winnie and Mona, sorry guys. I have the bullet point of just Mount Komorebi because, again, as soon as I knew that Evander was going to be heir, I already liked the idea of Bowman moving to Mount Komorebi and thinking that the Grey Gen heir, because, you know, they're supposed to master the fitness skill and master the athletic career, the specifically athlete career, not the bodybuilder career, bodybuilder aspiration. I like that idea that influence because Bowman was more of like the sporty one out of him and Pallas. That whoever was going to go to Mount Komorebi was going to like spend time with Bowman, be close to Bowman, maybe feel a stronger connection to Uncle Bowman than they did to whoever their parents were, because Pallas, you know, was very much not so focused when she was younger and had 2 young children on the family aspect of it. But then she got better with the twins because Almathea kind of put her in her fucking place. But it was the idea that Bowman was going to be a much stronger influence than he ended up being. And I always knew I wanted Grey Gen to move into Mount Komorebi because the original goal was one of the cool things I wanted to do with Grey Gen. And I thought maybe it could be like a story point with a future spouse, because the 3 failed relationship thing was, I wanted Grey Gen to get to the top of Mount Komorebi. I wanted rock climbing and snowboarding and all of that stuff to be much more involved, because I genuinely love Mount Komorebi and I don't get bored with Mount Komorebi very easily when I play that world specifically. I love the hiking. I'm sure you could tell by how much of it we did in Mint Gen and tried to involve Rose Gen in. I was obsessed with it. And also just because I had so much fun with the older generations at the time, I really wanted to go back to Mount Komorebi. So Mount Komorebi was always going to be the end goal destination. And I really, really wanted Mount Komorebi, like getting to the top of the mountain, a goal of Grey Gen. And it just got out of my hands. I just kind of lost the plot on that. And I do kind of regret that. And I think that's going to be something that I do on like my off time. Because I've never had a sim reach the top of the mountain personally. And I do still really want to do it because I think it would be really, really cool. So I'm going to have to try to do that at some point. So always knew it was going to be Evander. Always knew we were going to end up in Mount Komorebi. And then the last note I have for Evander is Time Lord Evander. Because I don't know if anybody could tell. And I was kind of hoping nobody would be able to tell. I, for a long time, got stuck on the marry and meet sim 3 failed relationships aspect of it. I got really stuck on it. I was kind of not having fun with that part of it. I was getting really frustrated because there were neat sims, like Frances Akiyama is a neat sim, but when I took her into cast, like, I'm so sorry, Frances Akiyama, please forgive me. When I took her into cast, I felt like I couldn't salvage her with a makeover. I did not want, it's like her face is very long and her mouth is way down here, and there's like a big gap between her mouth and her nose, and then her eyebrows are literally like this. And it's not just her eyebrows, it's like her full fucking forehead. I'm so sorry, Frances Akiyama, but I knew I wanted like the little elf ears and everything to pass over, and I couldn't reconcile it. I couldn't recover it. I wasn't comfortable. I was trying so hard to give her a makeover because I was like, she's the only neat sim I've met so far that's not fucking married. And I could never see Evander breaking up a marriage. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to like salvage this. I don't know what to do. So I was really struggling with getting to the end of the 3 failed relationships and then having the neat sim that I wanted to marry. The Time Lord Evander aspects comes in where I did the same thing. I turned off aging for everybody, not just Evander. So Heather and Chris, they just turned off aging for the 2 of them. I turned off aging for my entire save file. And I played, I think, a full week of spring with aging off, which we're not supposed to do it because it's cheating, but let's be real. Who follows the Not So Berry rules exactly to a T, like fully, strictly, doesn't fuck around at all? Who does that in the year 2023? Literally nobody. But I didn't feel good about it either. Like when I kept turning the aging back on and turning it back off because I didn't like it, but I was super frustrated and I was just kind of like, whatever, I'll just try to get things done. One of the episodes of Grey Gen, I genuinely don't remember which one off the top of my head. There are like, there's a lot of just like cuts to like promotions he's getting. And that was the week in spring that I had aging turned off because I was just trying to like, I was like, whatever, I'll just bust through the career. Like, I'm really irritated. I can't figure out, like, what I want to do. I didn't have, like, a go point, basically. So, that's why Evander's a Time Lord. All right, this is a very long video, and I feel like it's still going to be pretty long. This is, like, a long Not So Berry episode with the length that I'm filming right now. So, I'm going to leave that there. Please leave a like if you enjoyed and you find my Not So Berry secrets, like, interesting. Because I think they're actually pretty interesting, and I think it's cool to get, like, the insight to all of the nonsense that I get up to in Not So Berry. I think it's super fun because I feel like I put a lot into the episodes, but there clearly is so much more that happens that you guys don't see. So again, leave a like if you find that interesting. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!